President Biden's energy policies are under scrutiny as he prepares to visit oil-rich Saudi Arabia on Friday. For more on this, I want to bring in Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator Cotton recently wrote a letter to BlackRock raising questions about the company's ESG activities, and we want to thank him for joining us. And that's where I want to go with this conversation, Senator, because you have been outspoken and recently, as we said, just wrote this letter to BlackRock, effectively saying that their policies and their power and influence over companies around ESG are too much. What's the argument you're making, and then we can maybe dig into it?
Well, Andrew, what Larry Fink and BlackRock have done, in part through collusion with this climate action partnership, is essentially create a climate cartel. They are trying to suppress investment in the fossil fuel industry in America. And I know you have a lot of CEOs and investors who watch. I would just say this: if you're thinking about joining this climate cartel, you better think again and you better lawyer up. There's a reason why America's top law firms are already advising their clients to be wary here, because this is contributing to $5 a gallon gas. And when Republicans take charge in November, I'm going to make sure that the Congress is investigating these matters. This is almost certainly a breach of these firms' fiduciary duties, probably a civil violation of the antitrust laws, exposing them to triple damages, and very possibly a criminal violation. When we win back the White House in 2024 and the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission is no longer an ideological and partisan weapon against the oil and gas industry, some of these executives could be facing time in federal prison. So I would just encourage everyone to think carefully.
Senator, we're going to take the temperature down for just a second. I want to dig into this issue, and I also want to dig into the issue because, by you coming on television and being this outspoken, in a way you are, it's a bit of a signal, maybe more than a signal, to the rest of the business community to effectively stand down on potentially, and this is where I was going to go with this, an issue that they feel is the right investment decision. That's where I want to ask you about. You've obviously been a big believer. I believe in capitalism. I've seen your quotes over the years on our show and elsewhere. A believer in the free markets. There is an argument to be made that there is money to be made by investing in climate, in clean technologies and the like. And clearly, I would argue to you that if BlackRock were sitting here right now, they would make that argument. They would say that pension funds around the world, potentially European pension funds, we could debate the implication of that, but others have decided to pull their money from one place and put their money from another place. And what they've been telling their investors and their clients is that we should be following that trend because that's where the money is.
Well, it's where the government money is, Andrew. Sure, there may be money to make in these industries because their Democratic pals in Congress are rewarding them with all kinds of tax breaks and government subsidies. But the simple fact is that these companies may be making money coming and going. A lot of these ESG funds have higher fees than other funds. Moreover, BlackRock and Larry Fink and other firms like his insist that they have not divested from fossil fuels. So for all we know, they are simply trying to increase the stock prices of companies like Exxon so they can make more money on that end of the scam as well.
I don't understand the scam of this. If in fact they are keeping their investments in fossil fuels, which they are, and by the way, they get criticized, of course, from the left for doing that, and in fact, they're now also putting money or encouraging companies to spend or to invest more in climate because they believe that that's where the future is from an investment perspective. What's wrong with that?
It's not simply that they're trying to invest in so-called green technology, Andrew, that they're trying to withhold capital, trying to deny access to the equity and the debt markets to these fossil fuel companies or companies that use fossil fuels.
But you just said that they're not divesting from an Exxon or any of the energy companies.
It kind of resembles a pump and dump scheme, Andrew. In one moment, they're saying we're going to cut off access. That means there's underinvestment in the oil and gas industry, which means there's not enough supply.
Both of us just stipulated that they're not doing that. They're not divesting.
But Andrew, they're trying to cut. That's the stated goal of climate action, is to cut off access to the capital markets to these companies. That's the reason why we're pumping almost 1 million barrels fewer per day of oil in this country, even though demand has spiked. Normally, when demand spikes, you see oil and gas companies rushing into the oil patch, trying to produce more. They're not. That's why they have record high profits. If Joe Biden and the Democrats don't like the profits of oil and gas companies, they should increase production, which will bring those profits down and bring down the price of gas at the pump. One reason you don't see that increased production is because oil and gas companies are being targeted by this climate cartel.
Well, we've had a big couple of weeks here, Stuart, with uncovering really a vast censorship enterprise. And what we've uncovered so far is that at least 45 folks from the Biden administration were in constant communication with these social media platforms to censor and suppress speech. Had weekly calls on censorship calls. These social media platforms were changing their terms of service to deplatform folks. And then in addition to that, you had literally a high-ranking Facebook official texting the Surgeon General of the United States saying, hey, we did what you asked, what more can we do? So that's what we've uncovered last week. This week, and you referenced it in the intro here, a federal judge ordered now that the White House officials, DOJ had been fighting this, White House officials now these White House officials have to produce their emails, like Fauci and the press secretary. And so that's very important because now we're going to figure out what they were doing and what their communications were with these social media platforms too. And all of this should scare Americans that their government is actually, moving and using and outsourcing their censorship to these social media platforms to silence Americans.